selling and will officially own land in CSX, we're going to work with the developer to make sure they move as quickly as possible. But they've got to do the soil testing. And if the soil has to be moved to a special location, that's on them.
I've also been working with one of the county officials.
Yeah.
Supervisor Bailey?
Yeah.
She's been wonderful.
Yeah, and Mr. Dalton's board as well.
And actually, the folks from the community we talk to on a regular basis, they've been incredibly patient. They've been wonderful as well. And we're going to get there.
Thank you. I was wondering where this was. So
Yeah.
Thanks for this update. Thank you.
Okay. So New River Valley, something we updated the board on. This is exciting developments. We do have some good news on this. We are at pretty much a final design, and Norfolk Southern put out a proposal package, bid package, construction package for here and the Radford Labor Facility. They're going to close on that on, the bids are due November 26th, and the plan is to start construction in early February. Truth be told, they've already started some construction because they have the middle here is the old depot, which the New River Valley Station Authority folks want to turn in. We're going to get ownership of that eventually, want to turn into a new station. But right now, Norfolk Southern uses that for park garage to keep some lubricants and other things in there. Also meeting space. They are on the eastern end, of the eastern end of the picture, northern end of the yard. They're already starting to move dirt and building a new we call maintenance away facility, a new facility for them. So in many ways, construction's already begun because that's the pre-construction work that they need to move out so that the contract and a platform. They're also, that same contractor will also build a labor facility in Radford. So that's the work that will begin in early February. We are working closely with other agencies in Virginia, the Department of Historic Resources and others to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations. And shout out to Deputy Secretary Sergeant for his help in working with other agencies. It's already come to fruition. So we're working with them well. So we're really, really excited about this. I was out there just last week with a couple of our staff poking around the old depot. It needs some work, but it's going to be, that was where the old station was that we abandoned service 40 some years ago. Amtrak abandoned service 40 some years ago. So the community's really excited. There's an antique store over here. I could go on all day. So there's an antique store over here. The owners are so excited. They happen to be in. They're ecstatic, and they said if the station, we want to get the service open as soon as possible. And a lot of times there's a lag between the service getting in there and the station being open. In some places, there's not a station, there's just a platform. They'd be happy to have people come in, and if people want to get out of the elements and get some coffee or buy an old book or buy some antiques. So the community is really, really excited, and a few of us were down there last week to talk to some community leaders. So again, really excited about this. This is, again, it's a big change from where we were a year ago when we were talking to a lot of you about a different location. So we're excited about this new location. You might hear talk about New River Valley, Cambria. This is the Cambria location in Christiansburg in the New River Valley. Questions here?
Who's the lead? We are VPRA.
Jimmy?
Who's the lead on this project?
Norfolk Southern.
It's Norfolk?
Yeah, they have incentives to finish early.
Yeah, so this is one of those contracts that we've talked about where they have a set budget. If they finish below budget and early, they share a piece of that savings. And if they finish above budget or late, they actually have to pay part of that. So they've got liquidated damages. So this has been a very good partnership with Norfolk Southern to hold them accountable, hold us accountable for getting this service as soon as possible.
We work closely with Secretary Miller and others to work with Norfolk Southern to make the deal work with Norfolk Southern. I'm not doing that. I'm not sure that it's me. Okay. Usually it's me. Usually I blame myself. You're good. Okay, appreciate it. Any other questions? Yeah, I'm going to go through the rest of these really quick. What I want to point out here,
Let me move Mary Estelle's face off of it.
Thank you.
or these are siding projects. These are 3-mile siding where freight train needs to go past. As you can see, those are going 90 to 100% design. Take control back. I think it moves. Yeah, there you go. We're good. We're going to go into discussion a little bit later in King and Commonwealth. That's right at Alexandria Station. Newington Road and King Commonwealth, I'm glad they're next to each other because at King and Commonwealth and in Newington Road, when we build a new railroad over something, if the road below it is substandard clearance, does not meet minimum VDOT clearance of 14.6, where feasible, we try to increase that clearance, either through a combination of us raising the tracks or VDOT lowering the road. And at King Street, we're going to be able to meet that 14.6 clearance. The Newington Road, we also got the waiver just recently from VDOT. You need a waiver to get to 14.6. There's some different levels of VDOT. Sometimes they like you go higher, but 14.6 is a good clearance. We're excited about that to get that waiver that just came in a few days ago from VDOT. We talked recently about utilities need to be moved. We're working with counties. We're trying to be fair with them and Fairfax and Stafford. That we'll do the work. The agreements they have with railroads say that they'll do the work, but we're going to be fair with them. We'll do the work, and we proved in our budget. We have money in our budget, but they're going to pay us back to move this is mostly water, sewage, water, in fact, utilities. There's also a lot of other utility work going on with the Verizons of the world. Here, I want to point out that Staples Mill, we received over a $5 million grant from the FRA to bring Staples Mill up to some, improve the ADA level there with some platforms and canopies. So we're excited about that. We're going to show that again on the grants page. A lot of other work continuing to go on at Richmond Rail Facility, Patrick. We already talked about Newton Valley.
Mike, can I ask a question? Staples Mill improvements, ADA improvements. I'm thrilled that we got the money for that. Obviously, it's the busiest station in the Commonwealth. The APA is 30 years old. It's time to get that done. I saw also that we have a pending earmark for like $850,000. Can we finish the work with the 5-point-something million we got for ADA improvements, or do we need that earmark?
You could bring the station to ADA compliance without that earmark.
Okay.
You could. The only reason I was hesitating is if the congressional appropriators and wisdom still were to give us the additional $825,000, we would gladly accept
We
it.
could use it.
Of course, but it seems like it's a fundamental task we should get done, and if we have the money to do it.
If that earmark goes away, we will still be able to bring that station into ADA compliance way later than it should have been in compliance with the money we've got.
Very good.
It's a Chrissy grant, correct?
Yes. Yes, that's a Chrissy grant.
And getting back to the Fairfax, so the mover of the sewer lines, you said they'll reimburse us. Is that what I understood? Okay.
Yeah, we're already working on agreements with them. It's very clear in their agreements with CSX that they would have to reimburse.
Okay.
But we find a good compromise, whereas we're not as stringent as agreements where they have CSX to do it within a certain number of days that they have to do it.
Mhm.
So we're going to do it working with Steve and others. We're going to allow a fair repayment generally during the life of the construction.
Because
And the capital.
a lot of times in those counties, not specifically Fairfax, it takes them a couple years,
Yeah, exactly.
and we just want to wait for that.
Yeah, exactly. I get you. Okay.
We've already
Thank
been
you.
moving forward with our engineering bench to get that engineering started.
Mike, can you go back one slide? The one that I was thinking about, no, not that one. Keep going.
I think we're going.
See, well, I was interested in the Richmond to Raleigh, and you're at 60% design for the Richmond layover, right there. So that one, the question is that what's required with CSX is to just have the design, or does it have to be
So
built?
the Richmond facility we have in our budget, you all have agreed to up to 60% design.
Right, okay,
It's not yet fully funded.
okay.
That is, and the reason for that is right now there's just one train that deadheads through Acca Yard, which is a very busy yard just here on the west side of Richmond. After phase one, we have more trains after we finish phase one construction, and then one more train phase one construction coming to beginning and ending in Main Street. 3 more when Long Ridge and other phase 2 projects are done. So that's a lot of trains that'll be in addition to the current one. There'll be 5 total round trips, 10 trains moving through Acca. So our agreement with CSX is that we would build a layover facility south of Main Street so that the deadhead movements would not be going back and forth at Fulton Yard, which is south of Main Street.
So the question is, does it have to be built to meet that requirement, or does it just have to be designed?
To meet phase 2, before the phase 2 trains kick in, we have to build it.
It has to be built. Okay. And then on Richmond to Raleigh, because you guys know I've been very interested in this and very concerned that, trust me, guys, if Raleigh can, they're going to take advantage of us. So how many stations will be on the Virginia line?
Right now, the environmental documents have a station at La Crosse.
And that's the only one.
That's the only new station. The Petersburg Ettrick station is going to benefit.
But I mean, on the run of the S.
On the abandoned corridor, Mr. Drake's referring to, we bought 75 miles of abandoned corridor from CSX, from basically Petersburg area, Calgary Yard, down 9 miles in North Carolina. They're going to have some station in North Carolina, but the one station being added in Virginia will be at La Crosse, which is the south Virginia.
Okay, so there'll be one on the run, and this is not planning on going into Main Street Station. Or is it?
Probably, it's in a phased approach. It would eventually go into
Because they don't want to go there.
in a phased approach. If we were to fix all the issues between Petersburg and Richmond, and between Richmond Main Street and Staples Mill, which is was very slow in there, we would like to bring the trains to Main Street, assuming you're not adding much time to the schedule.
Right. That's the issue. They're putting time.
We don't want to add trains for the sake of adding trains and add 45 minutes to an hour to the Norfolk trains, for instance, because then you might lose ridership. We talked earlier about, DJ mentioned, if on-time performance isn't great, ride takes longer, you might lose ridership. That's one of the reasons for losing ridership. So you could see a phased approach to Richmond to Raleigh is to get that abandoned corridor up and running, and then maybe negotiate with CSX to continue on the A line around Richmond until we have those upgrades to Main Street Station. Into and out of Main Street Station, if that makes sense. Because we too don't want to add a lot of time just for the sake of checking a box and getting to Main Street Station.
Well, the other thing I'm concerned about is we might get one station. Are they kicking in to help pay for the improvements on the S line, or are we going to pay for the whole thing and we only get one station?
We have that.
Yeah, so where we are now,
I mean, do we have a hold of them?
we got a grant from the FRA, North Carolina and Virginia, and we're using that grant money to bring all of these 6 segments to 30% design or close to it. And then at that point, we'll have a better sense for how much money it's going to cost, and we'll have to come to the board and find out where the money's coming from.
Does that include the Appomattox Bridge?
Yes, thank you. I was reading my mind. We did not talk about this beforehand. I was going to say
That's the biggest piece in that entire corridor.
the Appomattox Bridge is a single track bridge, and what otherwise is a double track area. So you have a lot of congestion. And in fact, I've been on trains from Norfolk going north, and we wait for the Carolinian train to go south. It's going to be great for a lot of people to get that Norfolk train into Petersburg Station, to be able to cross transfer over to that Carolina train and to go south. And we've talked about that with you and others.
Very grateful that CSX allowed the Norfolk train to come up. That was a big discussion.
At Appomattox River Bridge, to the point DJ's making, we need to do proper engineering there, because we need to do geotech to ensure that the big cost drivers of these bridges are what's in the ground, how deep you need to go. We need to do proper engineering there to determine is that I don't want to say numbers, how many hundreds of millions of dollars is the bridge? That's very high up, and you go from rock to rock to rock. Senator,
So what's going to happen to Staples Mill if you divert trains to Main Street?
still plan on serving both. Staples Mill is the busiest station in the southeast, the big parking lot, and it's not far off of 64 and 95.
You know, some of us put a plan together at one point to bring the station back into Richmond so that it could be qualify as serving greater metropolitan Richmond and out of Enrico, but eliminate the diverting the trains around that slow corridor, because it's a 45-minute get around.
Yeah, it's
Longest 6 miles on the railroad.
Yeah, that's right.
between Main Street and Staples Mill. It's a slow slog, and that's something we think we'll be looking at for a Richmond area planning study to determine how to reduce that time. Even putting aside even Richmond to Raleigh and getting trains to Main Street, we need to reduce that time because we're getting more trains into Main Street that are also going to Newport News. And that's a lot of complaints we hear. And I remember from my time at DOPT, the talk about, there's a lot of conversation at CTB back in the 2017, 2018 timeframe about where to put the station in Richmond.
Eugene Trani and I put a plan together, and it got poo-pooed by the hierarchy in Richmond.
And I was just stating what we're currently planning. If the board and others decide that we need to, that's another discussion. So
Okay.
And let me, we're on top. Let me repeat myself. The grant that we got from the FRA brings this Richmond to Raleigh project to 30% design, and not another dollar gets spent without approval of this board.
We're putting $1 million in the Richmond Raleigh. The rest of the 30 million or so we're doing with design comes from the federal grant. So this is an update from, we went in the closed session back in August and talked about right away in survey work, how it has impacted our project. So we thought this would be something we'll keep in here. One of those additions, the executive director report I talked about, that shows you, some of the blue don't show up that great. It shows you where we're at with the green diamond is boundary survey complete, that we've completed the work, we sent it over to CSX. In fact, 3 days after the last board meeting, on August 26th and August 29th, we got agreement from CSX for the Arlington and Alexandria plats, Arlington and Alexandria survey work. So that means Alexandria Ford Track, and I mentioned earlier, the IFB, the bid ready to move forward. That's really good news we received just a few days after. So it's been a long slog. We talked about that last board meeting, but we continue to update you here. As you can see, a lot of with the green diamond, a lot of the boundary survey work is complete, and we sent it over to CSX, and they have, per our agreement, they have a limited amount of time. They have to agree to it, and so far they have agreed. But again, some of their val maps might be different than our survey work. And then we might have to go, if CSX especially is leading the project, they might have to go back and redesign for Franconia and Lorton, for instance. And that's why you might see a little longer runway there. They might have to redesign some of that for the reality of the boundary survey, move the lines different from what their valuation maps, if you will, had when we signed an agreement with them in 2020.
Well, didn't you share that with us last meeting and the val maps were incorrect?
Yeah, we talked about that, the Franconia area, especially Franconia work. We talked about how the val maps were incorrect. And now Arlington, Alexandria, many parcels, they agree that val maps were incorrect.
So, like on that, is it going to be a matter it can be redesigned, or is it a matter you're going to have to purchase right away?
Could be both.
Both. And then we will have the issue, hopefully we won't have the issue of any eminent domain. You don't have quick take, do you?
No.
Yeah.
So just for purchasing right of way, we're talking about like 10-foot slivers. I mean, it's not big acreage of land. It's 10 feet here, 15 feet here. And so many of the parcels are owned by WMATA, owned by public folks. Some are owned by counties. So we're working, as Mike pointed out, on a project by project basis. Some places we can redesign, other places we've got to go to the property owner and try to negotiate it.
And we're just before that point right now. Then
Some projects
surveys
are having those conversations, but yes, with it, that's on.
What it's going to take to get the right of way.
And the boundary survey work impacts the NEPA reevaluation, because if we go outside the limits of disturbance, we have to do the environmental reevaluation again. And then yes, I know. It's a step process. So finish the survey work, and then we do the NEPA reevaluation, and then we acquire the parcels, and then we construct. Now, in some cases, you'll see we can actually start construction before the property is acquired if it's a longer project. In some areas where we have all the properties, we can start constructing there. We've worked with FRA on that. They're okay with that. So, yes.
So the issue you brought up last meeting was Franconia to Lorton.
Yes.
And that we have no resolution. Do we have a
We
resolution?
don't have a resolution yet. However, the materials were sent over to them
Sam.
this summer, CSX.
Okay.
So our survey work that we do with AECOM, and also there's a third party that also works with CSX. When we send it over to them, we have the blessings, right word, of a party that also works with CSX that knows what CSX is thinking. So AECOM's our surveyor.
Yeah, I understand.
And so we're sending over to CSX. And so we should be hearing from CSX and Franconia and Lorton in the next month or two.
You're saying we may have another one with the Franconia Springfield bypass, right? We may have another one of those issues.
Yeah, the bypass is a much shorter, only
Yeah,
a mile
right.
long project. The Franconia and Lorton, six miles.
6 miles, yeah.
And sometimes you might have some projects where you have a mile by 5 feet. It's a very small slivers. We're not looking to take any buildings or anything of that nature. Just want to put that in proper context. As DJ said, slivers of land. Look at my counsel, make sure I'm not saying anything wrong.
I thought the Lorton one did have some private land that butted up. to it.
Yeah, we mentioned a Frito-Lay. Yeah.
Yeah.
In slivers, though, I mean, feet.
So this is a project delivery responsibility chart that was, the next few slides I'm going to go over are somewhat summaries of what you might see in other slides. We have the design and construction in the upper left corner, but sometimes it's good to put it all on one page. We'll continue with this. Sometimes I have to go back to it, even though we live this and we help negotiate it. As we add more projects to our portfolio, it's always good to have reminders. And again, we've talked about most of these. VPRA is also a key component here. And not only L'Enfant, but in the Alexandria 4-track area, you have 2 station projects. You have Alexandria Station and you have Crystal City that has to be aligned with Alexandria 4-track. And we're going to talk later on about King and Commonwealth as well. That's also working with you all at King and Commonwealth as well. And then CSX has the lead most of the time. CSX has the lead on the projects that are tracks on the ground, if you will. And also talk about Trip Station, we're taking the lead. Norfolk Southern, we talked about that as well with the incentives they have to construct those projects. This is something we'll leave an executive director's report. We thought it'd be good for everyone. Yeah, if I have to go back and check it, probably good to put in. And again, a lot of these, we talk about expenditures on the individual charts. These are all kind of a summary of them. We will be expending a lot more money when we're done with the right-of-way and the property acquisition and the construction work gets done. That is the big key. The key is to get the construction work going. And you'll see a lot of these variances be reduced that will be meeting the our intended targets for spending money. Very similar Western Rail. Western Rail, a lot of the money here is actually the 3 Manassas line purchased. I think we talked to all of you either in new board members or in past meetings about how a lot of the money was going to be spent on construction. We're spending it on this Manassas line. And so we can expand VPRA service and nighttime weekends in the future. Again, similar. So we have our capital projects that we lead, and we have a lot of grants we give out, like L'Enfant platform, for instance, and Alexandria Station improvements. There is some state money in these. So these might not be projects that we lead, but projects that VPRA leads, for instance. That there is state money that is legacy money from before VPRA existed, or money that we have grant money for. You also see the track lease payments. That is something that we work with VPRA, and we provide assistance with track lease payments that they pay the freight railroads and Amtrak. Again, some of the updates. A couple projects, Norfolk Ellerton and Roanoke Yard, are 2 projects part of our Norfolk Southern deal, and Norfolk Southern's also leading. They'll help with train fluidity throughout the area. DJ mentioned earlier Arkandale, Paul's Creek, and Quantico Station. That 9 miles of Arkandale to Paul's Creek, having been on a train myself and seeing the Amtrak train pass the freight train, shows you the work that we are funding and CSX and VPRA and others are doing really pays off. It's really nice to have that our passenger trains get around the slower freight trains. And Newport News, some of us were there, the great celebration at Newport News. Wrapping up, I went forward this really quickly. The good news was we did get Staples Mill money. We did not get the Lorton Furnace a couple miles there of track. We are going to go back at it for Stanton ADA improvements. That is one of the stations or agreement with CSX that we have on the platform. And we already talked about $850,000. Happy to receive if they deem it important in an omnibus bill to get that money. We'll put the vehicles. With that, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Pitter. Appreciate the discussion. Those are some good questions.
Yeah, to speed us up a little bit, I'm going to go through these real quick, and if there are questions, you're welcome to ask, or you're welcome to catch me in between during break. So this is just our dedicated Commonwealth Rail funds. It's on track for the year for a $163 million estimate. This is showing our investment balance, and you'll see that drop. I went away on vacation first week of September, and $315 million went out the door, and so that drop is. We're making good return on our investment, $9 million. That average you will see come down during the year because we're about a little over $400 million today between what we have in LGIP and what we have investment through our investment. Next slide, going through the 3 principles, the pre-policy priorities that y'all set for an investment policy, principle being the first, that you're maintaining our principle. So all of our investments are within the policy, which that policy is within state investment guidelines. Currently, we show a small gain, and that's due to we've taken some of our funding that's with the investment advisor and invested that out over a 5-year period to take advantage of the Federal Reserve, that their plan is to lower the Federal Reserve rate to 2%. And that is showing here, not quite as fast as everybody anticipated, but we are showing a gain as a result of that. And one last thing on that last slide, our plan is we have invested these, and I'll flip to the next slide, to allow for the liquidity to meet Mike's project needs. So our plan is to never have to liquidate an investment before it reaches maturity. So there's an unrealized gain today. Last year, we were carrying some unrealized losses. Those changed to unrealized gains. So, but plan is to always carry to maturity. This just shows liquidity. You see that we're within all the guidelines of investment type. You see what I was talking about, the years of investment here in the lower left. The less than 1 year is in the LGIP program, which doesn't have a daily market. It's at pulse. Next slide. This is just showing our return. You see the return is starting to decline when we get all the way out to the end, which is following the Federal Reserve's interest rates. They've had a couple of cuts, some planned cuts. Well, they're a little less certain. And that was it. So unless there are questions, or if you have questions, you're welcome to catch me on the break.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go just quickly through the supplier diversity slides. These are the standard slides that we do every month. This outlines really the different types of diverse business spending. You've all seen this before. John Kostanuk is going to come up in about 5 minutes and talk about our annual goal. We touched on that last time as well. Just the definition of DBE. Here's our spending through the first quarter. As you can see, we're in pretty good shape. We break it out by non-discretionary spend. These are the dollars that we really have no say over. Amtrak, we can't choose a different vendor. Some days we'd prefer to. VRA, CSX, et cetera. The discretionary spend on the left is really what we're focused on, and there are the top 5 SWAM spendings that we've got there. So that's completely on diversity and spending. I know John's going to talk more in a minute or two. Administrative updates, normal staffing, we're at 63. We've got 4 openings. That was my fault. 2 folks came on in November. Charlie Nelson is a new analyst working in Steve's group for Shannon, an FP&A analyst. And then we've got to continue to assist us with the right-of-way work that we're doing that we've talked about. Deborah Hayslip starts in next week. Here are our standard gender and diversity charts to include age and race and gender. We feel good about the work we're doing here, and we've talked in the past about the different initiatives we have to encourage diversity in all these categories. Rail Safety Month, we did a ton of work in Rail Safety Month. Jerica's here. Jerica and her team were tremendous. Just reached out to all of the folks on that screen. We had input from board members that said, hey, talk to trucking companies, and we feel good about the work that we did as far as getting the safety message out. I asked myself, should we be doing this 1 month a year, or should we be doing it 12 months a year? And there's probably about, we should do more of it, but it was a successful safety month. Here's the administrative budget. We're only a couple months in, but we continue being in good shape, where we've got a little bit of a surplus in pretty much every category across the board. And then you see on the right-hand side, it's split out between what is on our capital projects and what is not allocated to projects. So any questions about those? Here are the contracting updates. Any contract for more than $250,000, we notify the board. You see all of them here. Pretty straightforward. Nothing really out of the ordinary. We've got our track lease payments, our capital payments to Amtrak, and then we've got project management support on the Leland Road siding that we gave to WSP. No budget adjustments in October. That's pretty straightforward. And then here is just the breakout of our operating costs by route that we have every month. Any questions? Right. Mike alluded to the fact that we were awarded last December a Fed State Partnership Grant of $729 million. This was to fill the gap we had in our phase 1 and phase 2 projects, specifically on Longbridge. We are getting ready to sign that grant agreement. We're working with VPRA to get that signed. Any contract or agreement we have with the board over $50 million has to be voted on by the board and approved by the board. This is the Federal Railroad Administration / DOT giving us $729 million. And so I would like to request that the board give us the authority to accept that money.
Second. Any discussion? So would you call the roll? Ms. Bushu? Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
Mr. Delandro?
Aye.
Ms. Dorsch?
Aye.
Ms. Drake?
Aye.
Mr. Flowers?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
Mr. Payne? Mr. Watkins?
Aye.
I didn't figure that'd be controversial.
On that one, because I know you were filling the gap like you said, but what does it look like out there as far as cost of materials and things? And I was concerned about that before. Is this just going to be an ongoing thing because things have gone up so high?
So we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the Longbridge contract. But at this point, we remain comfortable that we can complete all of these projects within our budget.
Thank you.
This grant really closed that gap. And we've been very mindful as we negotiate contracts that we committed to the VPRA. This was the amount we needed to get these projects done. And we're not going to the well twice.
Thank you.
He's not sweating, so I feel good about that. Okay, we have talked about.
Before we go to the bylaws, I am a little concerned about the number of FTEs. I think it sounds kind of high. Do we know how many consultants we have on board as well? Not including those consultants that are hired to do the construction, obviously, but how many consultants do we have to supplement the FTEs?
We can get you that list of the actual number. I mean, we know the number of companies, obviously, and we have we can get that list for you.
Yeah. How many FTEs do you have, Rich?
Kind of a similar story. We have obviously, contracted service providers and stuff,
Right.
probably over, 210, 220 people, but it's
Just FTEs, just
FTEs at
VRE,
VRE
no consultants.
about the same, I think about 62, 63.
Yeah, but you have operations, right? Yeah, we don't have operations. We're just doing construction. So therein lies my concern. If we had operations, we don't have that. Of course, we have oversight over Amtrak, oversight, I say lightly. So I'm just really concerned about the number of FTEs. I don't want to micromanage, but at the same time, I don't want to build a big government agency here with VPRA. So I think we should be very mindful of that, mindful of the taxpayers' nickel.
Yeah, no, strongly agree with that. We're managing a $5+ billion capital program, and we're
We
mindful.
have a lot of consultants that are supplementing that too.
That's true.
We have a marketing consultant.
We do.
And then how many oversight consultants do we have? We have Kimley Horn, we have WSP.
For individual projects, yes.
I just think we need to be mindful of the Virginia taxpayer. I mean, I think we have a lot of money and that's fantastic, but we need to be very judicious on how it's spent. I think with all the consultants we have on board, I just wonder about that FTE cost or FTE number that we have. And we do not do operations. We're just doing although big, construction.
Is that a product of the employment market that you're struggling with, DJ?
It's a balance. So we have, as we've built up this organization, and again, 3 years ago, there were 3 of us. We have tried to have a good balance between hiring cost consultants that really have the ability to swap people out anytime and hiring folks that are VPRA employees that we can do a better job of holding accountable. The talent market has been unbelievably challenging, and we've talked about that a lot here because there is so much money with the infrastructure bill, and people are paying much more money than we can pay as VPRA. So it's a balance that we've been working.
You're not unique. I'm seeing other state agencies and localities struggling to bring in talented people.
Yeah, that's throughout the whole industry. Not even transportation. I think a lot of other industries are having that challenge. Yeah.
Agreed.
TJ, do any of the newer FTEs give us an opportunity to offset some of the contracting work that's being done?
Yes, actually, if as you looked at our level of effort, and we could show you this analysis, we could prepare this analysis and bring it. In the beginning, we had a lot of folks doing work as contractors, but as we brought folks on board, for example, we're bringing on these right-of-way folks to help us. We no longer need the real estate lawyers. We no longer pay them. We pay folks that are VPRA employees. Another example of that is, and we tell folks this in all staff meetings, we have got work that kind of ebbs and flows. And so it doesn't make any sense for us to hire designers if we're going to get work designed and then no longer need that. So that's where we use the consultants, where we tend to bring, where we bring folks on board as full-time employees and when we need that skill consistently and repeatedly. If we need something 80 hours this week and 0 hours the next week, then we're going to use a consultant.
It'd be great to see the
Yeah, it'd be good to have the board members see the consultant list and see exactly what they're responsible for, and then to see the FTE list and see those job titles. I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you.
Bylaws, we review the bylaws on a regular basis, and earlier this year, the board said, hey, let's just do it annually. Let's just make it. So we are going to begin to do it every November meeting. We went through the bylaws. We had a number of cleanup changes that I sent out last week. The one I think that is other than cleanup, well, there are a couple that are other than cleanup. Section 3.7, in the past, we've had special meetings, and so we set a board schedule, and then when we want to bring the board together for an in-depth briefing on like Long Bridge North, we did it, or on the bypass, we call special meetings. Based on our bylaws, we had to ask the chair to then get 2 other board members to agree, 3 people to have a meeting. We've clarified that language, so if we want a special meeting, we can just have the chair ask for a meeting. We just think that that's easier than going through the perfunctory process of having 3 folks ask for the meeting. And then the only other one is, 3.10, we clarified how committee members are assigned because it was a little ambiguous. And so we just put in place the practice that has been used for the last couple of years. And then finally, in section 4.1, it was originally written so any member of the executive leadership team could apply for, accept, or administer federal awards. When we had the first org chart, we did not envision having a chief administrative officer, and we just felt like adding that would be consistent. Chief administrative officer is responsible for procurement, responsible for IT. There are situations where the CAO might be applying for administrative grants as well. So it's consistent.
2 questions. Go back to the next screen. Section 3.4, add pronouns.
So previously, and I sent this out, previously in section 3.4, it said that the chair of the board shall employ the executive director. Duties may conferred upon him as may be delegated to him. We just added or her.
The sections were inconsistent. So there were some sections that said this position will do his or her duty. This particular section just said him. So just clean up. We added or her, make it consistent. When we're using generic pronouns throughout, it's his or her, him or hers.
The board may choose to hire an executive director that's female, and then the bylaws would be consistent.
Could you go to the next slide? The section 4.1. How many currently has the ability to authorize or accept funding?
Executive director, chief financial officer, chief operating officer, general counsel, and then we're going to add chief administrative officer. So
why is 4 not enough?
Well, each of us has our own, I guess I have everything, but everybody else has their own lane. And Joan, the chief administrative officer, oversees IT, oversees procurement. We just felt that each of the executives, the 4 executives plus myself, should have the ability to apply for, enter, just for consistency. So each executive member has that same authority.
Is that just within their own realm? I mean, you wouldn't have Joan approving Mike's project. I mean,
right, that's correct.
The way you're envisioning this, it's within your own lane.
Right. And at the end of the day, none of this changes the fact that anything over the dollar amounts that are outlined has to come to the board anyway and has to be part of the approved budget.
Just trying to better understand. So why to make this change to the bylaws? Well, these are changes to the bylaws, correct?
That's correct. These are changes we're proposing to the bylaws. Yeah. When we wrote the bylaws originally and they were approved originally, we had envisioned that anyone in the ELT would have this authority because that's part of your responsibility as an executive. We have one more executive than we expected to have, and we just wanted to make it consistent and have all of the executive positions as part of that.
Who signs hers now?
Me, I think, they come to me.
Yeah, so there's a time for which I started DJing some all the applications, but there's also the administering federal awards, which kind of work fall into ops and put on work and fall in procurement. So it's more, more verbs than just signing applications, right? It's also administering those federal funds. It's exactly what DJ said. We're balancing. We have one more executive than originally planned. So we're putting everybody on equal footing as far as ability to apply for and administer federal funds.
And I'll add to what Michael just said, that it could be that DJ's on vacation, that he can't have access to sign. And so it's the ability to also allow an agreement. So Fed state partnership agreement shows up, DJ's on vacation. Trust me, we want to sign that the day it shows up.
But there's 3 other people that can sign behind DJ. Is that correct?
I mean, so it's.
So I guess this just comes into, I guess it's my general principle just about building bureaucracy. And I guess that's why I will vote against this. I think we need to be lean and mean. And I just think this is just adding another bureaucratic something that's not really necessary, in my opinion.
Those are the proposed changes to the bylaws. I don't know if there are any other comments or questions.
Hearing none, we'll accept a motion to approve the changes to the bylaws. Do we have
Second.
any additional questions or discussion? Mary Stowe, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bouchou,
Against.
Mr. Crawford,
Aye.
Mr. Delandro,
Aye.
Ms. Dorsch,
Aye.
Ms. Drake,
Aye.
Mr. Flowers, Mr. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Payne, Mr. Watkins.
Aye.
Carries, thank you. And at this time, I think I'm going to ask our Vice Chair, Ms. Drake, to make a motion to take us into closed session.
I move that the board convene in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29 for the discussion of the execution of a VPRA contract under negotiation, which is a project coordination and funding agreement between VPRA and the VRE commissions for the replacement of the railroad bridges at King Street and Commonwealth Avenue, each in Alexandria, Virginia, involving public funds and discussion of the terms of scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of VPRA. Is there a second?
Second.
Who seconded it? Mr. Payne.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Bouchou,
Aye.
Mr. Crawford,
Aye.
Mr. Delandro,
Aye.
Ms. Dorsch,
Aye.
Ms. Drake,
Aye.
Mr. Flowers,
Aye.
Mr. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Payne,
Aye.
Mr. Watkins.
Aye.